Advancing here, retracting there.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Check, check. One,
All
two,
right.
one, two.
Good morning.
Check.
Yeah.
Checking.
Do you have a
computer
color
volume,
preference?
See if you're getting anything. One, two.
I'll
One,
go
two.
green
Check,
and
check.
All right.
Christmassy.
Yeah. Very good.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Don't know what that means, but we'll
Well,
find
it's just
out.
we're a little fun thing we'll do.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah. Got you guys. Sir, did I ask you if you had a color preference yet? I don't think so.
what's
I
that?
remember you from Minnesota. Yeah.
What do you need? I'm sorry.
Do you have a color preference?
Don't matter.
Go
Green
for
is
it.
fine.
Green it is. Then.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Huh? My mic is on? Well, he didn't tell me it was on.
It's on.
Good thing I didn't say anything. Good morning, everyone. We're ready to get started, so if you would kindly find your seat.
We're just settling in. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Jim Colehart. I'm the incoming president of the Milwaukee chapter of C-Suite for Christ. Paul reached out to me yesterday and said, I can't make it tomorrow, so you'll have to MC. So here I am, MCing on the fly, looking forward to it. Grateful for everyone who is here in the room joining us today, and our live stream audience as well. And Al Ruppel is delivering the morning prayer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alan Ruppel, member of C-Suite for Christ. They say I got 3 minutes to deliver a prayer, so I got to do a little preface to make so this prayer makes sense. You know, I was driving over here and stuck in traffic, and I even texted Paul, said, and I'm getting frustrated with the traffic and everything. I just got back from Islamabad and Afghanistan for what I do, right? So I'm jet-lagged and I'm frustrated. And I'm thinking, and then the thought came to me of, we started actually now, the only tuition-free schools for Christians in a 98% Islamic country where they're completely discriminated against. They boil their own sewage water, there's no schools, there's no trash removal, there's no places to live except the slum. And we got this done for the first time in history. And the parents, we're the first generation to educate them, to give them a chance to break this cycle and keep their Christian faith. All they got to say is, I'm no longer Christian, I'm Muslim, and they would get all these services. So they really suffer for their faith. And so there was a parent when I was there. And so I meet with the parents sometimes of our kids, and unfortunately, for every child we let in, there's 2,000 on the waiting list because there's nothing for them. And he says to me, Mr. Al, I'm so excited today. And I said, really, what happened? He goes, I got picked. And see, the only jobs they can get, either if you're fortunate, you can maybe clean a house or do the laundry for a Muslim family, or just like the old Depression movies, they line up outside the slum and these construction companies come by and they pick, and then they get to go out and use axes and use sledgehammers and break rocks. And he said, I got picked today. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I worked all day, and he made X amount. He said, I can buy chicken and rice, and we're going to have a feast for my family. And I thought, man, in the United States, that's what we sentence you to, hard labor with a sledgehammer. Yet he's all excited. He's thankful to God that he got to break rocks for 8 hours that day. So as we pray, and it's kind of with that backdrop in mind that I would like us to pray with today. Lord, as we gather in your name, Jesus, and try and live the mission and fulfill the mission of the C-Suite of Christ to boldly proclaim you in our workplaces and in our lives, I want you to remember that to help us remember we get to do this. We're honored to do this. So often we can focus on the difficulties or the people that don't agree with us or the people that want to censor us and censor you, and we can see it as a burden. But yet, in reality, it's a blessing. It's a blessing that we get to do this. It's a blessing that we've gotten chosen. It's a blessing that we can come together and support each other in your name to carry out this mission, that you haven't left us alone. You've given us each other. You've given us this mission. And we ask that you help us joyfully carry it out, irregardless of the issues that come up or the problems. So bless our gathering today. Bless the people who have come here this morning seeking your will, seeking to fulfill your mission, be it here or anywhere else in the world that we find ourselves, and especially in our workplaces. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Al. I'm interested to hear more of your story overseas at some point. So, welcome to our new members. This is the period in time where Paul always introduces all the new members who have joined. I believe that this list includes not only the Milwaukee chapter that might be present in the room, but anyone that has joined the home office around the country and world. So I'm just going to turn around and read it because I cannot see that screen whatsoever. Ernie Zara, a retired executive. Aaron Stelzer, president of Facilitech CG. Sean Talluri, director of product management, Upbound Group. Frank Connolly, co-founder Hero Bridge. Carol Brecht, owner, TangledArtBoutique.com. Tracy Lockwood, VP of Loan Operations, SaveAbank. Nathaniel Butler Jr., President, Druber Solutions. Wes Scott, partner, Frost Brown Todd. Annie Lovedahl, Sr., Executive National Account Manager, CIS. Tracy Leonard, Principal, Focus Realty Advisors. And we have 3 returning members this month. Michelle Horst, CFO, Custom Service Hardware. John Lamb, Chairman and CEO, Lambscapes. And Paul Narang, self-employed entrepreneur. So let's give a hand to everyone who has joined or remained. Quick moment to promote the Winter Savior Summit coming up in January in Dallas. The dates are January 14th through the 16th, and all details are available on the C-Suite for Christ and Savior Summit websites. But the bottom line is these are I find them just very enjoyable events. I've attended each. We've had 2 so far. July we were at Concordia here in the Milwaukee area, and then in October we were up in the Minneapolis area in Eden Prairie. I met a lot of really great people, heard a lot of really important messages, and just found it a really good use of my time. And I invite everyone in this room and everyone joining us on live stream to congregate in Dallas in mid-January for a larger experience of this type. Kevin Sorbo is the keynote speaker, so Kevin's keynote on Thursday morning, which is the final day, will be live streamed, but everything else about the event you experience by being together in person. So again, encouraging everyone to join us up in, or I guess down from Milwaukee and Dallas in January. Maybe some of that I covered. Oh, by the way, there is another special movie screening and pickleball included, Paul mentioned to me. So I don't know how many of you attended in Eden Prairie, but we saw a premiere of a holiday movie, and apparently there's another movie premiere that will be taking place in Dallas. So this QR code, if you're interested right now, you can scan for more information and tickets. We're working hard to build our YouTube page, adding a lot of content, and we're encouraging each of you to please subscribe. You'll find it beneficial to view what's on the page, and it will certainly help if everyone just goes ahead and subscribes to build that community. So again, the C-Suite for Christ YouTube page, easy to find. Please join today. Shout out to a sponsor, a long-term sponsor for C-Suite for Christ, Decided Excellence Catholic Media. Thank you to that organization for their sponsorship and support of C-Suite for Christ. For today's God moment, we had a postponement last minute. So Paul, I think, made a handful of calls to encourage anyone else to last minute provide a God moment. We had no takers. So the suggestion that Paul made that I kind of liked, we'll see how it goes, is for the group to potentially contribute a way that they're seeing God work in their life right now. And I'll start, and we're hoping that we'll have a handful of participants from the group here in person today. I'm not going to do a full story on this, but I have a pretty cool story that I'll be able to tell in more detail someday. I listened to what I thought was the prompting of my Creator 3 years ago and sold my business. And I really didn't want to sell it necessarily, but I was offered a lot of money for it, my wife and and I was praying, and I felt God was suggesting that he wanted me to take this offer. I just searched it out. Is this Satan? Because I really like running this company, or is this something I should do? And everyone around me told me that I wouldn't enjoy working for the buyers. But I listened to what I believed was the prompting from God, sold the business, and proceeded to become miserable working for the people that I sold it to, just as many people predicted. And I prayed, God, you know my heart, you know my capabilities, you know my skill set, you know my experience. Please deliver me something else to do here so I don't have to stick in this environment. And all I kept hearing was, I want you to stay. And what I did through the whole experience was I kept working hard, because that's my nature, and it's also what we're taught in the Bible. I just kept trying my best every day to lead the division for the larger organization. And then lo and behold, at the start of this year, the CEO approached me and said, Jim, we're dissolving the corporation and Saturn Lounge is for sale, which allowed me and my wife and my son and a couple key employees to buy the company back for pennies on the dollar. So it's not anything that I take credit for, because it's not a reasonable business strategy, I don't think, to sell a company and expect that you'll be able to just buy it back 3 years later for pennies on the dollar. But I do feel like it's a situation where I did listen to God, kind of did a couple things I didn't want to do, which sometimes when we're asked, they weren't really hard things. They weren't sledgehammers and sickles, but it feels like a blessing, at least at the moment. So I may tell more details down the road, but that's how I feel God has been working in my life recently. Do we have any volunteers? Would anyone like to share anything happening in their life right at the moment, or very, very recently, where they really see God working in their life? Excellent. Todd, we have a volunteer. We have a mic if you'd prefer, or you could welcome to come right up here.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Do I have to? Oh, so they can hear me? Oh, shoot. Okay. Sorry. Dr. James Chitwood. I am on a pretty big journey right now. I've just recently published a book. Did that in April. April was its publication date, and I didn't pursue a doctorate to become a consultant. It wasn't my path. I did it because it was hard. By the way, it is, in case you were wondering. When I decided to leave a 20-year career in higher education, I did that off of faith. I wasn't planning this path. It wasn't what I pursued. I had just simply followed forward through the daily steps of life, one decision after another, one degree after another. I have 4 of them, just continuing to go forward. And if you own one of these, you know how annoying that was. Along my career, my wife kept saying to me, Jim, are you going to continue this path? Are you going to go and consult? And I've always wanted to, but I didn't have an original thought to provide. And so I'm an operations person, a sales operations person. I was working in the startup space, and I was helping companies develop new divisions and departments, and I kept operationalizing myself out of a job over and over and over again, which is, if you've created a good operation, that's exactly the outcome you want, right? Like, you've done it, now they can hire somebody less than you to keep that thing running. And I did that over and over and over again. And my wife kept saying, are you going to keep operationalizing yourself out of a job, or are you going to do something about this? And the day it took me 9 months the last time, and I was finding myself without the revenue stream of life that helps us pay our mortgages and everything else going on, 2 kids in college, wondering what in the world am I going to do? And I spent the entire day discerning, AKA praying, not like I don't do that every moment of every day anyways, but this was one of those days. And all I heard was, seek your daily bread. Seek your daily bread, seek your daily bread. And then I'm thinking, okay, great, so how am I going to do that? And that's when all the aha moments throughout my life, Errol and I were talking about this earlier, how sometimes you look back in your history and you see those little shining lights, and you see those moments where it's like, oh yeah, that's why I went through that pain, that's why that happened, that's why that happened. And all of these pieces came together, and I was able to publish my book, put it together, and look upon my history, and I couldn't have done that without God. You probably can't notice it, but I'm suffering from a brain issue right now, and so it's hard for me to think and keep my train of thought going. And I'm like, really, God? What's the purpose of this one? Like, why would I, after I had a really challenging childhood, why after going through that, would I go through all this, get to the point where I've written a book, now going to be doing that thing that I think I've always should be doing, and now I've got this new layer of pain on. And what I'm coming to, and this is like new thoughts for me, what I'm coming to is I don't yet know, right? And that's what faith is. I don't yet know why I have had a headache since August 25th, got all kinds of stuff going on. I don't know, but at some point I will. And that's what faith is, right? Looking back, I just have to believe that I'm strong enough to get through this. And 10 years from now, hopefully it's no more than that, it'll all make sense, right? And those are those God moments. And so I kind of think that every moment is a God moment for us, but that's my journey today. And it's a pleasure here to be with you all, so thank you.
We have a couple minutes. Anyone else care to share a current or recent God moment? Excellent.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dennis Cherney. I've had a couple God moments. One was 25 years ago. I was told, or my wife was told, that I probably wouldn't make it through the heart attack. 3 days later, I woke up through the emergency, and I have about 75% of my heart muscle dead, so I shouldn't even be here. I've carried that, shouldn't have been here for 25 years now. So I've been helping other people, I guess. That's why he didn't want to take me yet. So then 2 years ago, I got diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. And I'm going, why? Why now? He must want me for something to help somebody along the line, because I'm still here. So my God moments is, for some reason, he doesn't want me up there yet, and I need to help some people down here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Worked out great. So thank you for sharing. And those are the types of stories that we hear. They're amazing. I've been coming since day one with Paul and C-Suite for Christ. And I know he says every time God moments are his favorite. And I find it a little more difficult to discern my favorite because I enjoy all the elements in different ways. But the God moments have been really amazing over the years and will continue to be, I'm confident. So thank you both. Today's keynote speaker is James Ziegler. Now, I was up at the Savior Summit in one of the sessions, and James was down the row from me, had never seen, talked with, or met James at that moment. And the speaker encouraged us to start with a hug. So the first thing I did when I met James was give him a hug. And it was kind of and it's not normal. I'm kind of a hugger, but not for complete strangers, especially men, truthfully. So it was kind of a unique experience, but we're blessed. So and it's worked out perfectly because I learned quickly James was booked just to deliver a message to our group today. We've corresponded on Teams a couple times and developed a nice friendship that started with a hug at a Savior Summit. So without further ado, James Ziegler.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You know, it's like coach in high school or something like that. But man, I gotta say something before I even start. Every moment is a God moment, is what Jim said. This is a God moment right now. In my history of, speaking to large crowds in the VA, those were God moments for me. But they weren't God moments for everybody else in the audience, maybe a few here and there. But this is so special since 2011, when I took my first job in the VA, that's when I started following CC for Christ. And it has just grown. I don't even know the numbers right now, but I mean, when you have Tim Tebow and Kevin Sorbo, and I don't think I could ever probably speak at one of those because I don't think I could do a cameo like that guy. I mean, that was quite the look there for Kevin. So I want to begin by telling you something about myself, and that is that I am unapologetically a Christian. I am unapologetically a father, a husband, and a pops to 2 little granddaughters. I am unapologetically committed to God's calling on my life to serve Him. And I am also unapologetically committed to ridding the world of bullying one at a time, starting with this one right here. God gave us a blessing for us to live in, move, and have our being. Being is that thing we all seek. How do we be? We know how to do, but how do we be? What is in that? Now, I'm a little bit crippled here, so how do I do that?
This advances
this
largest button.
Just go like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about some truths about truth-telling, grace-giving, and triangulation. Everybody go like that. Triangulation. Before we get to that, we have to talk about a particular situation in Matthew where Jesus goes to his disciples and says, hey guys, I'm just kind of wondering, been around a little while here. What does everybody think about me? What do they say? Who do they say I am? And of course the disciples answered, well, you're the Messiah. You're grace, your truth, your fullness, some people think you're actually John the Baptist come back from the dead, we don't know. We don't really know who it is. And then Jesus asked another question, which was a profound question, and he began it with a conjunction, which was a negative. He said, but who do you say I am? And Jesus told them the truth, but he also extended grace to them. And the way that he gave them grace was he said, and by the way, don't you go telling anybody any of this yet. The reason that he told them don't go telling anybody was to prevent them from being persecuted, because he knew what was to come. Jesus extended both truth and grace in that exercise. You all have a card in front of you. I have mine too. I would like you to take a moment and write on one side of the card, Grace Giver. You didn't know this was going to be participatory yet, did you? Early in the morning, wake up and, now we got homework. On the opposite side of the card for you overachievers, write Truth Teller. And those of you in streaming land, if you got a card, piece of paper, sticky note, whatever it takes. Now, something happened just now as you were writing that. You had a sensation that one of those is kind of like, yeah, that's me. So which one is you? And turn your card over facing yourself so that you could see that for the rest of today's talk. Grace Giver, Truth Teller. My goal for us today is to be able to fill in a question. Who do we want God to say we are? Who do we want God to say we are? God will honor both your grace giving and your truth telling in His time. This is where patience comes into play. This is where we get lost sometimes, wondering, what is life? What is next? Right, James? What is next? How many times do I operationalize this? Over and over and over again. Should I really listen? Should I really sell this thing? These are our children. That's our daughter, Megan, and our two granddaughters, Ella and Maya, and Andrew. Andrew is son-in-law, and Andrew demonstrates and teaches us through the triangulations in our family. We have 4 alcoholics in our family. And part of triangulation, when it involves a substance, is absolutely crushing to families and relationships. Do you remember when you went like that? It's not a complete triangle. So true triangulation is not really a triangle. It's really just this thing that is empty at the bottom. Some call it ghosting. It looks like a ghost. There's nothing there. So once upon a time, there was this ambitious child of God, me. I made it. I made it to the next level. I had made it to supervision, baby. Well, actually, no, I passed that level, and I even made it to middle management, and I was the chief of a service line at a major medical VA center. That was my dream. So what do you do when you have a dream? When you meet your dream? Well, you go on vacation, right? So my wife and I, Brenda, is back there, smiling, and we went to St. Lucia, and we came back after 7 days in the sun, relaxed, refreshed, and ready, romantic. We got home, we got off the plane in Iron Mountain, Michigan, and it was like -26, and it was snowing sideways, and it just sucked the wind right out of our lungs. So we got home, but with all that positive energy, and it was Christmas time, I got up early, I got a cup of coffee, and I went out and I plowed, and then I went to work, and I was still really invigorated with the whole Christmas spirit, and, my tan was looking pretty good, and, so I thought that I had it made, and I got to work, and I was armed with the best leadership advice anybody could ever ask for. My grandpa told me, finish what you promised to do. Finish what you promised to do. And my grandma taught me about people. So you got commitment and you got service. So grandma taught me, if everybody know this one, put your hands together, see the church, see the steeple, open the door, and you look in and you see all the people. And grandma would say, where there are people, there are problems. There's leaders in the room. You know what I'm talking about. And the perfect church is one where you look at the steeple, open the door, and there's nobody there. No people, there it is. Well, my mindset was really set on grandma and grandpa and everything that they were saying. And then my phone rang. It was HR. Any HR in here? Any HR out there? Any HR that I know? Well, they informed me that while I was sunning myself on the beaches, that my sleep medicine physician had been found at church when he was supposed to be at the hospital seeing veterans. My boss fired him on the spot. Throughout my career, there's always been this kind of theme. I've gone to places to fix it, reoperationalize. Then somebody else comes along and does their thing, right? So I want to teach you a little game that keeps you involved here. When I say something's wrong, you go, fix it. Shall we try? Something's wrong. That's sweet. I could even hear the people online doing that. All right, well, My boss fired him. Something's wrong. They were doing so well. It dawned on me after that call that I no longer had a sleep medicine doctor. I no longer had a sleep program. And I had a tech that would probably be doing nothing. Something was wrong. While processing this new information, I grabbed all the leadership information I'd ever had. 2 books. Good to Great, Jim Collins, and First 90 Days, Michael Watkins, and Graham and Gramps' advice as well. Of course I could face this thing. Heck, I could face anything. I could face the world. So I sat down at my desk and I started to strategize. And this is a Christmas story, because it happened at Christmas. Outside my door arose such a clatter that I rose from my chair to see what was the matter. And to my wondering eyes, when I got out in the hallway, there was no Santa. There was no reindeer. But there was a nurse manager, a night shift respiratory therapist, a night shift tech for sleep, and a day shift respiratory therapist, and a whole crowd of others that were just looking on because they were curious, and the union vice president. Something's wrong. Nursing was upset that respiratory therapy wasn't passing their medications, inhalers, breathing treatments, things that are important to patients. Nursing was unable to pass the medications that they wanted to pass, so they were getting behind in their duties. The night shift respiratory therapist and this tech had an alliance, and they were friends outside of the hospital. When I asked the night shift tech what was going on, her response was, "I don't have time to clean up after work." I didn't say it, but something was wrong. That kept the day shift respiratory therapist from being able to do their job and pass those meds, and there was the problem. But what this was the result of triangulation. Nobody was talking to anybody except in their own little groups and then the union. They just unilaterally and selfishly manipulated one another while they acted like Dr. Seuss. Sylvester McMonkey Badine, you remember that story with the machine and the Sneetches, and he manipulated both sides of the team until the point where nobody knew if they were Sneetches with stars or Sneetches without stars. It made sense to me, this whole thing, so I muttered some immortal words. Let me look into this. Investigate. This is when it gets really fun. So while I was investigating, the union vice president decided to do some defense. So she filed a claim against one of the older supervisors that they had suffered the employee, the tech, to work without paying them overtime. You familiar with that term? Suffering somebody to work without paying them for overtime? I wasn't. I thought that was just, we'll pay you. And it was a simple thing. No. And what it resulted in was myself and HR having to read thousands of emails within a week, while the tech and the night shift RT were just partying at night because there was nothing to do. Something was wrong. Well, as they say in the movies, the plot thickened. It was like pea soup as this exorcism began. And what we discovered, are you curious? You can't make this stuff up. 70 instances where the tech had been operating a private business using government computers. There's 2 words to go along with that: jail and see you later, Felicia. So my boss wanted me to fire every single one of them. The day shift RT was really in a pickle. Everybody was confused Patients weren't getting medications. We really had a risk. If you are anybody that uses a CPAP or you have a family member that uses a CPAP, you know how serious it can be if a person stops breathing in the middle of the night. They may not see breakfast. So you need to have that kind of medicine in a hospital. Well, it all came to a head, and I found myself just like King Solomon. I was holding the baby. I was awaiting the true mother to come forward. And I said, let me look into this. Well, something Solomon taught me was that one cannot tell the truth unless one knows the truth. How many times have you been faced with something in leadership where you didn't have all the information and you weren't sure, but you had this gut feeling? And one cannot give grace until one knows where to extend that grace to. Would you agree? So let's talk about Solomon just a little bit. How did that whole thing come about? Solomon's prayer. That's how it all came about. Solomon had to stand in David's footsteps and follow his father. And he realized at one point, he's like, talking to himself, his inner bully, dude, you are just a grasshopper. You are just a little kid. There is no way you are good enough to be able to judge this great people. And Solomon, because he was the wisest man that ever lived, got blessed with that because of the way he prayed to God in that situation. So, as God has this wonderful sense of humor that we all know, he gave him a chance to operate in it very quickly after he said that prayer. And he sent these two prostitutes or harlots or whatever you want to call them. They were just ladies that weren't not that ladylike. And they were shacking up together, and they were both pregnant. And the one had a baby. 3 days later, the other had a baby. That night, the one lady laid on the baby and killed her baby. That night at midnight, she gets up and goes into the room of the other baby and switches the babies. And then they go to Solomon, and Solomon used one thing to do it. What did he do? What did he do? Yeah, he took out a sword. What do we know as a sword? The Word of God is like a sword, able to cut through. He used that wisdom that God had granted him, greater than any other man that ever lived or will live. And he said to these ladies, he says, well, we're going to just cut this baby in half. I got a golf tee time, something there about 2 o'clock or so. We got to get going. So the real mom realized, no, this is going to happen. And he knew the real mom was going to come forward. So there was grace in that. And there was truth in that. So now you have your cards. So I am a truth teller. I have been a truth teller from the day I was born. My wife is a grace giver. You know how that works, right? Opposites attract. In fact, like what you were talking about, Jim, at the last C-Suite, Lisa Marie Platsky from Upside Coaching, she called me out during the presentation. And she said, you're a truth teller. Well, that kind of bothered me just a little bit because I thought I was me. And so I pondered it and I got curious like Jesus did with the disciples. And I asked myself this question. Am I really that obvious? That's why I chose this Christmas story to share with you today. If you really think about it, when we think about Christmas, we think about Christmas as Christians as a different way than the world does in some way. We celebrate his birth. We celebrate his salvation to us. We celebrate the fact that because of that, we are Christ-like. We are Christ-like internally, and we can be Christ-like externally. We just kind of have our preferences. Well, it became clear to me that my new job was pretty complicated. It involved babysitting, performing the duties of a judge and a detective, and being a servant. And that's when it happened. That old familiar voice. I heard my inner bully say, "Told ya, you're not good enough for this leadership stuff. They're gonna find you out." I cussed, I cursed, I cried, I prayed. I had to pray. I didn't know what else to do. I was driven by my values and faith, and I knew that I was a truth teller. I knew I needed to fix what was wrong. And just like Grandma said, people really got problems. And Grandpa was cheering me on to finish what I was promised to do, but something was wrong. You guys are a real pushy crowd. I partnered with my inner bully, and I said, "Look, I realize you see me from a different lens than I see me, but your lens that you see me is a valuable lens to me somehow. Instead of saying, 'Shut up, leave me alone, quit saying all those things. Gosh, I'm so depressed, get me some ice cream.'" I mean, all of that is the battle that happens within when we are Christ-like. Where's that battle really at? Who is that bully? Is that bully really a bully? Or is it a partner that gives you wisdom and strength, fortitude, all those things that we say we want as leaders? Maybe the secret is already inside you. So I relied on my gift of truth-telling. I told her, "You're about to lose your job, and maybe more." And then I awkwardly turned my card over and leaned into grace giving. And I said, "I'd like to cut a deal with you." It sounds kind of like Satan in the tree, maybe. Maybe I should rephrase that. If I invited her to day shift, I proposed that we work on another issue together, and that I gave her a clinic to run during the day. I gave her the sleigh and the reins and just waited for her to make a decision. She could have been fired, or she could have her own clinic during the day. She seemed shocked. She was like totally taken back. Maybe like the manner of the woman who, had the alabaster box and was wiping Jesus' feet. Or maybe like the lying woman that had the baby and laid on it. But guess what fruit came from this Christ-likeness? My awkward exercising outside of the box of truth-telling and giving grace. We won an innovation award together. She's still working, has moved on to a major customer service position. And I'm so proud of her. Now's a good time for you all to say, "Aw." This isn't about me. It's not about me. It was about Christ in me and me in Christ. And how the workplace is truly a safer workplace because of his presence and his influence. I'll say that once again. Not about us. It's about Christ in us. The workplace is a much safer place because of his presence and his influence. Okay, that's what you've all been waiting for. So I'd like to make a hypothesis that God doesn't really want us to be either or. In fact, in John 1:17, we're told that the law came from Moses. The law points to Jesus, right? The law was the thing everybody was afraid of because it was going to condemn them. Whereas Jesus was here to redeem. Well, Jesus came different than the law. Jesus came full of grace and truth. Look it up. If you don't believe me, it's in the Bible. So triangulation is a definition whenever one person or a group tries to convince somebody else to take their side. How many of you have children? You see it. And you've been there, right? Well, mom said, no, dad said no, but mom said, and it just keeps on going. But when it gets into the workplace, it can be just vicious. Anybody dealing with this in your workplaces? Can you think of an example? People are up against one another, trying to one up. So the way that it works is that in psychology, there's a rescuer, there's a victim, and there's a prosecutor. But that's not what Jesus intended for this to do. He wants us to do things his way. And I'm going to show you that right now. So I'm going to pick on the grace people first, but everybody in the room is playing along with this game. So if this statement, as I read it out loud, resonates with you, raise your hand. You can put it back down right away. Well, that was fast. Please, you're pleasant to be around. Some of you are not pleasant. All right, don't ruffle feathers, follow the rules. It's thinning, the crowd thins. Good looking and a millionaire. I'll take that. Cuts a lot of slack. Easygoing. Accept all for who they are. Don't make demands. Always welcoming. Would die if they didn't show grace in some instances. And now you're all like, son of a gun. Grace people are pleasant to be around. They don't ruffle feathers. They are good looking and millionaires. But without truth, grace is really just grace, and it's really just being accepted or being nice. Grace people without truth are pleasant to be around, but they make us wonder, do they really like us or not? Or are they just trying to be liked? Think about the people that work for you. Think about the people in your life who you have relationships in, where these dynamics show up in different places at crazy times sometimes. They're tolerant, but they often don't know the difference between right and wrong. And don't really care to line up when there's an argument on one side or the other. That would impact a triangle. Grace people don't want to get involved in an argument, so they just stay away from it. Some of the people in my family actually want to stick their head in the sand like an ostrich. Doesn't make me not love them. They often refuse to make tough decisions in life, and they don't demand anything from anybody else, and they get nothing in return for that. If you're a grace person, you're probably most concerned about being loved. May even use statements like the greater good. So, now that the wet blanket is on everybody that's a grace giver, time to beat on some truth tellers. How many people in the room right now feel that they're easy to admire? Strongly tied to your convictions and principles. There's a right and there's a wrong. You're good looking and a millionaire. You set standards. You speak out against injustice, oppression, and evil. You're articulate and well-spoken. You would die if you didn't tell the truth in some instances. Well, without grace, truth-telling can become an excuse for being belligerent. Truth people without grace are loyal to a cause, to their company, but are they loyal to teams? They want to change others to help them grow. but they don't allow mistakes. Quick to judge. Make the difficult decision, but makes life difficult for others at the time. Inspire others with courage, but turn them off with intimidation. You know, that one really stuck with me because I was told all through my career that people were intimidated by me, and I was scared of my own shadow. And I could never figure that out. How can I be intimidating to somebody when I'm intimidating myself? My bully's beating on me 24/7, and I'm intimidating? And truth tellers have this thing about them, at least I do. It's a wrong. I have this ache and a twinge to just fix it. Something's wrong. I love it. I love it. Everybody say everyone. You know, it would be great. It would just be absolutely great. The world would be wonderful if everyone didn't hate you and that was it. It would also be great if, you know, equally a problem if everybody did just love you. Not caring how people are impacted by you is equally wrong. When you're presented with a triangle, you are in a precarious position. You're expected to be that rescuer. That's why psychology came up with that term. But this is, if you think about it, this thing right here. While I was writing my book on bullying, I posted a text, or whatever you call them, and it was about the book. And a person that had worked with me many, many years ago wrote on LinkedIn for the world to see that I was a bully and that I had bullied this person in a meeting and made them cry. And I thought to myself, I don't remember the meeting. I don't remember anybody ever crying unless I was firing them, but never in a meeting. So everyone is the key here. Everyone is the power that is behind cyberbullying. We can literally hide behind a post, or we can knock down somebody else's post, and we can wait for somebody to take our viewpoint and say, like, or wow, that's insightful. What did we create? A perfect recipe for triangulation. You got the people that are liking it, and then you got the people that are absolutely destroying it and putting all the different articles up to prove your point is totally invalid and you are as stupid as you look. But this is what we need to do. We need to do what Jesus did. So let's talk about Mary and Martha. Jesus has just gotten to Mary and Martha's place, and he's preaching the word. And Mary is at his feet and listening to him. And Martha decides, time for a triangle. She goes over to Jesus and says, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Martha's, not helping me with what needs to get done here. I'm thinking Jesus probably knew that because she was right there at his feet and they're in the same house together. And yet, Martha felt it, being a truth teller, hey, Mary's not doing her job. Mary's too busy sucking up the grace from what you're given in your word here. The difference in the two sisters. Jesus did something that was really cool. And this is the example of when you get put in a triangle, what we can do. The operationalizing of this is you reaffirm the feelings. Jesus said, you know what, Martha? You are concerned about many things. So he reflected what Martha was telling him and acknowledged it and affirmed that he understood what she was saying. But then he said, but Mary has chosen what is expedient for her. He cut the triangle right off and said, no, this is not going to happen. You're not going to put me in the middle of this. I'm going to put both of you and let you know about your position and what you're saying, and you work it out together if you need to. But right now, I got a job here. I'm preaching the word, and Mary's listening, and you're off making cake or whatever it is that you're doing. So also in the Bible, in Luke, it tells us what we should do when this happens. Churches are, terrible for this, right? So you go to that person, and how do you go to that person? Privately. First. And if it doesn't work, then you get a couple of others, and you go together. And you see if you can reason this thing out with some support. If that doesn't work, then you go to the church leadership and you see if you can work it out then. And then, if that doesn't work, you can do what President Trump does and say, you're fired, just like that. Because at that point, you've been able to treat them as a pagan or a tax collector, and I don't think that was really good treatment if they did that. So here's some things that you can operationalize. Jesus was the Word, He was the Word and God, and He's both truth and grace. And the examples that would reflect someone's position and then a firm understanding of it, but then to stay away from getting involved in it. So if X has a problem with me, I would hope they would tell me directly. I don't want you to be in the middle. Those are some powerful words. I don't want you to be in the middle. You're showing concern for this person that's coming to you to try to split the family if it's a child, or if it's an organization, to cause toxicity, psychological unsafety, incivility. So please don't tell me any more about what X thinks about me. 2, well, let's just go right over there and get X right now and get to the bottom of this. Sometimes that works, sometimes that ain't the greatest idea. I'm sorry you're having a problem with X. I'm confident the two of you can sort it out. That's what Jesus did with Mary and Martha. And this is my favorite one because it's a coaching question. If this situation with X was solved today, what would that get you? What would that get them? And what would that give our organization? They want the problem to be known. Do they want the problem to be known for a true, motivation? Or do they want the problem to be known so they can cut the baby in half and nobody has a baby? Or do they want the baby to survive? Okay, now it's time to get real. I learned that telling the truth spreads the gospel. It was another Christmas. It was December 2022, about 11 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock in the morning. I was laying in my bed and my wife was in another room, and I was entertaining an angel on my bed. And the angel kept saying, turn over, when I was on my right side. I felt this physical presence pushing me over onto my left side. Stay awake and call a hospital. So until about 1 o'clock in the morning, I didn't do anything about it. And 1 o'clock, I called the triage nurse, and the triage nurse said, you're having a pulmonary embolism or a cardiac something or other, and you need to get to the ED now. And I said, you're crazy. I must have eaten something bad. I don't know what it is. And so I had to go to her room to get her. Well, we got her. called the ambulance. The ambulance comes. The ambulance does its test and says, "There's nothing wrong with you." And I said, "I know that. I know that." But I had to get in the ambulance to go to the hospital anyhow. So 7 hours later, I met this doctor right here. This blessed man of God that I had no idea was a Christian. Now, some people say that you say the strangest things when you're on your deathbed. Maybe that's true. Because when this picture I took was after that doctor came back in and said, "You have hundreds of clots in your lungs and in your legs, and you have minutes to live, and we have to do this procedure." So I called Brenda and I said, "You got to come back to the hospital like right now." And she did. And the doctor was asking me, "Is there anything that you really want to tell me about?" And I said, "Yeah, I got to tell you what was happening in my bedroom." I didn't know he was a Christian or not. I didn't ask. I'm a truth teller. And I thought, if I'm going to be going somewhere, I probably ought to testify before I get there. That was kind of selfish, but my wife teases me that's what I was doing. It worked. I'm here. And this right here, Brenda, I know this is probably tough for you to see, but this is what they brought out to her in the middle of the operation and said, "This is what we're taking out of him, and he's going to be okay." I can't imagine what you felt when But that was me after the anesthesia, or maybe there were still a little bit involved. And then in the military, we have this tradition of coining one another with a challenge coin, and I had the opportunity to go back to Las Vegas from California, meet the doctor, shake his hand, and give him my coin. And that proved to me that truth-telling and the grace that brought me here today to talk to you was of great value. So to wrap this Christmas present up, we explored the preferences between grace and truth. Was there a shift for you? We dispelled a lie, perhaps, that we can only be one or the other. That Christ was full of grace and truth, and because we're in him, we're like him, we therefore can be both. So who do you want God to say who you are? Did that shift? So the challenge I want to leave you with is to write on your card how you will pray today and purpose to enhance the opposite side of your card. Maybe there wasn't a complete shift for you. Maybe there was just a twinge. Maybe there was nothing. Maybe it was all gas. I don't know. And with that, I'd ask you to grab a copy of Chemical Courage. It's back there on the thing. And I just want to thank you for having me this morning. Absolute blessing to be here. And hopefully this was helpful for you and your organizations, and may you be blessed. Yeah? All right.
All right, thank you, James. Certainly got me thinking a little bit. Really enjoyed that presentation. We'll be doing small groups in a moment, but before, wanted to do a quick shout out for another C-Suite for Christ sponsor, Biblical Business Training. I know their services are offered to members free, and we encourage everyone to check out their website and investigate how they can help you, either your organization or your family. So another fun part of each monthly gathering is small groups. We generally stay within our tables, but that is not required. So if you feel you want to move, you have an opportunity to join another group. Feel like at least 3 or 4 people make a group complete. So, I mean, if you really want to split off in a group of 2, we don't stop you from doing that either. This is an opportunity to really share with each other and discuss what James talked about and what's on your minds as Christians and business executives today. So these questions are in your handout, a little newsletter, I guess, or booklet that you can pick up at the table when you pick up your name badge. How is your soul today? What prevents you from being all that God has called you to be today? And what was your biggest takeaway from today's gathering? How will you adopt this in your life moving forward? So we will spend about 50 minutes in small group. We'll reconvene about 5 of 10 for our closing prayer. Okay, everyone. I know the time probably, hopefully felt like it went quickly, but we're up against the end of our time together this morning. Just a couple quick reminders before our closing prayer. We meet again on January 8th. That is the second Wednesday in January, and that is to accommodate the event in Dallas the next week. So for those not aware, in general, throughout the year, we meet on the third Wednesday of each month. But in January, we're going to get out to a quick start on January 8th. And Mary Grothe is the featured speaker. So with that, I'm going to introduce Danny Fromstein to come up and close us in prayer.
Microphones freak me out a little bit. I got a really loud voice. People are telling me to shut up and quiet down, so I don't know if I need this thing. But hey, Jim, thank you for bringing the word today. Did anybody else get slapped in the face? Like, I am totally like 1,000% a truth teller and could use a little bit more grace. So that's my takeaway for today. Lean into it, exactly. I need to be somewhere in the middle, I think. So, all right, if everybody would bow their heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for meeting us here today and for leading Paul Newberger and his team to, form a community where business leaders can come and network, build relationships, and really lock arms with other Christ followers, here in the marketplace. Thank you so much for blessing us with the encouraging word from, Brother Ziegler today. I hope that everybody else was able to get a nugget or a few that they can, kind of take home with them and apply to their daily walk. I want to lift up, anybody, not just here in Milwaukee, but in the other chapters and those listening online, that if there's a specific need or a request for healing, I just pray that you would meet that person right where they are and, bring resolution that only you have the ability to provide. Over these next couple weeks as, we all start to prepare to celebrate Christmas and the birth of your son, Jesus, I just pray that we would all be reminded why this time is so special. Thank you for bringing your son down to this earth to, live this life that we all experience and to provide us with a roadmap to really live, the most fulfilling life that we can and one that honors you. With that said, I also recognize that although this is a very joyous time for most of us, this is also a season that can bring immense hurt and loneliness to many other people. And I just pray that, you would wrap your love around those individuals and that you would, bring them a peace that just surpasses all understanding during this time. As we close out, I just pray that you would protect everybody here, everybody listening online, and that, you would really help us keep your word in our heart as we, move throughout the rest of this week. We love you, and in the name of Jesus, all of God's people said, amen. Everybody have a good week.